Hi, I'm Wendy from Shiny Happy World, and today I'm starting a new series of videos. These are all going to be a little series showing you how to work with fake fur or faux fur. What I'm going to talk about today are some of the very basics. I'm going to show you how to cut it out without having fur flying all over your sewing area, and I'm going to show you how to sew two pieces together so that you don't have to clean up the seam afterwards by going in with a pin and picking all the fur out of the seam. So let's get to it. Okay, this is some of the fur that I'm going to work with. I'm going to have a post on my blog that's going to show you some sources for getting fake fur. This is some really terrific stuff. It's got a nice long pile to it, and I love how it's got the darker undercoat and then this frosty kind of top coat. And it's a nice long shag. It's going to make some good monsters. So I just wanted to show you the fur that we're going to work with. Now I want to show you the underside. Fake fur always has the pile to it, and then it's attached to usually a woven fabric. Most fake furs don't have any stretch to them, although some do, especially some of the minky furs, so you do need to be aware of that when you're choosing some. The trick to cutting it out without leaving fur all over the place is to not just whack at it. What I've done is I've traced my pattern piece. Never try and cut more than one layer at a time when you're working with fur. And I don't try and pin my fabrics, my patterns to it, or even use pattern weights. I lay it down and trace around it. I usually use a black marker on something like this, but I wanted it to really show up the line. The trick for cutting it out is that you want to do your best to only cut through this back layer and not go cutting through the pile, because when you do that, you'll end up with fur bits all over. It's a little slow and a little bit tedious, but it's really not that bad. The hardest part is getting started. You just want nice sharp scissors, and you're going to do fairly small cuts, and you're just cutting through that back, and you're trying to poke your scissors into the pile so that the scissors kind of glide through the pile. And you can see already that I'm preserving the length of the pile right up to the edge of the fabric. That's going to, first of all, help not to make a mess in your sewing room, but it's also going to let you have much nicer seams on your finished project because you'll have long fur going all the way up to the edges. So I'm going to just clip the rest of this seam and pull it apart and show you. See, it's not too terribly slow. I'm going to go right up to that edge, and now I'm going to pull this apart, and you can see that the long fur comes right up to the edge. And if I shake this, I have almost no loose fur coming off. I just had a couple of hairs flying around. So I'm going to finish cutting out this piece, and then I'm going to show you how to sew two pieces together, and I'll be right back. Okay, these are the two pieces that I'm going to sew together. You can see I cut them out carefully so that I have long pile going right up to the edges. What's important about what I'm going to show you now is that you want to keep all that long pile. So you're going to sew it just like anything else, right sides together. And what you don't want is to trap any of this fur inside your stuffed animal. Right now, with all this fur that's sticking out here, all of that is going to end up inside my stuffed animal. It's going to lose that fur, and also when you open up that seam, the fur is all going to be buried in there. It's not going to look very nice, and it's even if you manage to pull it out with a pin, it never is quite as full and fluffy as it could be. So what you want to do, this is actually really much easier with this long pile fur. You want to kind of finger comb it so that it is going into the middle of your softy piece. And you want to do the same thing with the top layer. I'm just going to kind of push it down in that direction right away from the cut edge. And then I'm going to very carefully put the two layers together. And I'm going to start pinning here at the top. And as I pin, I'm just going to work my fingers in there and make sure that all the fur is kind of combed into the center of the softie. This is, like I said, this is easier to do with the long, shaggy furs, but you can do it with the short ones too, and it's actually, I think, even more important to do it with the short ones because their seams really can look pretty bald if you don't do it. Then you end up spending a lot of time at the back end. Right now we're spending a lot of time at the front end preparing it to go together nicely. If you don't do this, you end up spending a lot of time at the back end after you've sewn your softie together, trying to pull that fur. You've got a little pin in your hand, trying to pull all that fur out of the seams. It's really tedious and irritating work, and I think it never looks quite as nice as it does when you just do this at the beginning. So we're just about done here. And I've got a nice clean edge here with no fur sticking out. And I'm going to go and sew those together. And then we'll come back and open it up and you can see what it looks like. All right, now we've sewn that seam. We're going to open it up and see what it looks like. And we have a very nice seam with nice finish, no visible seam anywhere in there. And I didn't have to go back and pick any fur out of my seam lines. It is ready to stuff if it was all done. So that's it. These are the two basic things that you need to know when you're working with fake fur, no matter what you're doing with it. Later on, I'm going to have some videos that show you how to applique onto it and how to applique with it and how to add eyes and all kinds of things like that. But the main things that you need to know, no matter what you're doing, is how to cut it out without making a mess. The main thing there is to just cut through that back layer. Don't cut through the pile of the fur. And the other thing is when you're sewing it together, to pull that fur into the inside of the body so that it is inside, so it'll show up on the outside when you sew it and turn it back right side out. I'm Wendy from Shiny Happy World. I'll see you next time.